All right, here we go. We have wrestling royalty in the building. Jake the Snake Roberts. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Oh, thank you for letting me be here.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm a longtime fan. I grew up watching you on WWF.
Yeah, those were some good years.
They were. Okay, well, this is our first time here, so I want to start in the very beginning. So you grew up in Texas.
Right.
But what part?
Gainesville, Texas. That's North Texas, about 60 miles north of Dallas.
Okay. And what was that like in the 60s and 70s?
Pretty rough around my house. There's a lot of bullshit going on, you know. My father wasn't a good man. He was a pedophile. Raped my mother when she was 12 years old. I was born. In the next 4 years, they had three kids. He divorced her at the age of 17 and left, you know. And, of course, 17 years old in the 60s, you're not going to raise a family on a waitress's wages, you know. And so we got split up. My mom wound up living with my grandmother on my father's side, and my grandfather, who was a hopeless alcoholic. He drank a fifth of whiskey every day, 7 days a week. That's what he did, you know. And it was pretty rough.
Well, you've told the story before, so I want to get into it a little bit. So your father was actually dating your grandmother,
right?
Initially,
right.
Okay.
She passed out, and he went in a different room and raped a 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's crazy. How much older was he than your mother?
Oh, 12 years old. 12 years.
Okay, so she was 12 and he was 24?
Right.
Wow. Okay. And then he actually married your mother after she got pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was, like 13 and he was 25?
Yeah.
I mean, how does a 25-year-old marry a 13-year-old?
Hey, it was the 60s, man.
It was the 60s.
You know, it was,
okay.
It was living in the country, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so then he got married and they had 2 more kids. So it was 3 kids total?
Right.
And then when she was 17, he divorced her.
Right. He went on the road.
Okay.
He took off.
Right. So then you went to go live with your mother moved in with your grandmother?
Right.
Okay. But then your grandmother passed away.
Correct. When I was 13, she passed away.
Okay. And
by then my mother had remarried, and she had moved out, of course. My sister was living with my father, because he had remarried, and by then my little brother was given away at birth to my aunt, my dad's sister. So we were all split up and scattered. And when my grandmother died, there was no way for me to stay with my grandfather because he was a drunk. You know, he'd been in a real bad oil field accident in the 1930s, and he crushed his legs. And he was in the hospital for like a year and a half, and they just kept re-breaking his legs trying to get him right. The whole time he was hooked up to morphine. So when they got him well, they kicked him out the door. He had a little twitch in his walk, you know. He needed a little something to get him going. And so he turned to alcohol. So he drank a fifth every day. So I couldn't stay there. So I wound up going to live with my father, and that was a big mistake.
Right. And before then, you said your mother had remarried.
Right.
And you actually had a good relationship with your stepfather, right?
Yes.
But then he got electrocuted?
Yeah, that was not till later on, though.
Okay, got it.
Much later.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you went to go live with your biological father at that point. But then a whole new type of abuse started.
Yeah, that's when it really got sick. Yeah, my stepmother started abusing me sexually. She'd make me perform, and she'd beat me afterwards. It was pretty bad. I was 13 years old, and she was only 20 at the time because my father had found him another young girl, you know. He seemed to have that thing about him. He had to have young girls. And later on, we found out that it didn't matter if they were his own, you know, because he raped both of his daughters too. So
Right. So he was molesting his biological
yeah,
daughters as well.
yeah,
And then your sister, one of those daughters,
yeah,
at 18 years old, she married a 55-year-old man.
right. Trying to find daddy.
Yeah, daddy
And
issues, basically.
that didn't work out too well for her. A year later, she had a baby, and she was kidnapped and murdered by her husband's ex-wife. Um, she never paid the price for murder because they never found the body. But there was enough blood in the trunk of the car to know that my sister didn't survive.
Right. So the ex-wife who killed your sister ended up going to prison for 10 years for kidnapping.
Right.
Because they couldn't pin the murder on her because
Right.
there was no body.
Correct.
And then she got out 10 years later and got back together with
Yep.
the husband.
Yep. And they disappeared somewhere in Mexico.
Yeah. So the body was never recovered.
No.
Yeah.
But there was a huge life insurance policy that had to be paid off. On my sister.
Well, what happened to their baby?
Well, as my nephew, he's in prison right now.
For what?
Theft, drugs. He's tormented. He's got a lot on his mind. He's just screwed up, man.